Composer Gloves here, and this is the 19th video in the Kontakt from the ground up tutorial series. And today we're going to look at groups and the group editor. So if we open up let's go ahead and use a drum kit. So if you go in the editing mode, go to the group editor, and you'll see we have just 100 million groups. And you might be wondering, what the heck is the deal with all these groups? And you learned about what groups were in the last one. And so the main reason you'd have so many groups is so that you could tell things how to interact more specifically, how to tell your different zones to interact. So a group is a bunch of zones, and you can process them differently. So we have our group insert effects. And the advantage of having everything separate is you can process them differently. So here we have our clap, but we'll notice that, let's find something that's been done. You can also tell that our volume is different on the different ones. It seems they stayed relatively consistent with their EQ. So they probably did some stuff in post. And you'll see that our voicing group is going nuts right now. We're going to talk about voice groups in the next one. But let's talk about creating a group. So let's just grab a sample and drag it onto our edit area. So I have this kick. And we come over here to our edit mode and go into our group editor, and we'll see that we have our sample. But if we go into our mapping editor, we've created this massive zone with all this pitch information and stuff. So let's just set the sample onto the root note, because we haven't talked about the mapping editor in detail yet. So here we have our sample on our note. Let's drag a few others. So we have this one and this one. So we have these three notes, and you'll notice that they are all part of the same group. And we can double click our group and rename it Kicks. So now group Kicks has these three samples. Now let's create another group. So to do that, you go to create empty group, and we're going to double click to name it. We're going to rename this one Better Kicks. And now, if we drag, now we got to talk about interacting with our group. So if you have it selected by clicking on the name, this is, you'll see your groups is up there. But you also see that you're editing the groups themselves if there's a check mark there. And you can check mark the other one to edit just specific groups. So if you have like 12 groups that you want to do one specific edit to, you can do that. And you'll just be editing those samples. However, if you try to unclick the one that you have selected as a name, it will not work. You'll also notice, I guess I'll talk about that in a sec. So just so you know, in the future, when you're trying to unselect and select things, that could be like really annoying. But let's go to our Better Kicks, and now when everything's selected, you'll see edit all groups is on. You could also deselect that just to select the one you're on. This can be really important if you want to make a change to all your groups, but at the same time, make sure you turn it off after you make that change, because you could end up changing things in all your groups that you could really regret. And in my experience, Control-Z doesn't really fix very many problems. Half the time, it doesn't even work. Actually, most of the time. So just so you know, you want to be real sure about the moves you're making. Don't go like crazy fast. So we're going to drag some more samples on here and put them in our Better Kicks group by selecting it. So yeah, there's one. There's another. And there's another. So these are our Better Kicks, and these are our just regular kicks. And if we come down here to groups effects, right now we are only on Better Kicks. So if we put something in the group effects, because if you do effects later on, like instrument effects, then it will affect the entire instrument, which is all your groups. So we don't want to do that. We want to affect just the group effects. So we go in here, we're going to add a filter, we're going to add a high pass, just so that it's obvious what's going on. And so if we play our notes now, they've been high passed. But if we play our other notes through notes in the different group and just group kicks, they still sound exactly the same. And so that is the advantage of different groups. That's how you select groups and stuff. And so that's what edit all groups does. You can make a change to your group editor and they will all get that change. So if we put another thing, just anything. So we've got that. And if we take it off, and we go between them, you'll notice that it is on both groups. And yes, and it turns dark gray because you don't have that one selected. But if you move around, you can select the different ones. So let's edit all groups. This just shows you your group's options and edit. So let's before we do this, let's create a new group. Create a new group and name it stupid because it's empty. Sometimes this will happen, like it happened to us while we were creating that flute earlier in the series. And if we go to edit, we have oh, by the way, I do not know what this is. Set flag for selected groups. I assume it has to do with flagging samples, but I'm not sure. So if you know, drop it in the comments. I love knowledge bombs. But we have delete selected group, so that'll delete the group. We don't want to do that. We have purge empty groups. So it'll go through and it'll find all your stupid groups, no samples, and it will get rid of them. So bang, it'll just disappear. No more stupid. Wish there was a button like that in real life, right? Then you have copy selected group, so you can copy it and you can even move it over to another instance of Kontakt within Kontakt. As far as another Kontakt is a completely separate plugin. Not 100% sure, but it might work. You have cut. So if you cut it, it'll put it onto your clipboard and save it. And you can, so it's just like how cut works on your PC or whatever. Like you take the text literally out of its position and move it somewhere else as opposed to making a copy. I'm not sure if you cut and then copy something over it, if it will delete it. I don't think it will, but I wouldn't test it. You have duplicate groups, so you can bang. Now you have two Better Kicks groups and you see they're overlapping now. So if you were to like drag them over, oh, well, this selects them all. So you'd have to do this. We're going to talk about the mapping editor. Then you have paste group with samples. So once you've copied a group, you can paste it with samples, or you can paste the group without samples. Why would you want to do that? Well, isn't that like the point of copying the group? Well, no. Sometimes you want the same exact processing on another group in your instrument to keep it consistent. And so that is one way of doing that. Paste it without samples would just give you the group without the processing, and then you can move samples into that group. Then you have this export edited group. So this is really cool. You can take a group and you can actually export it. And so if we were to, and by right clicking on your groups too, these options pop up. We could go export edited group and it will export it into a file for that. And then later on, in any other instrument, you could go in and say import group and you could add that sample group to your samples. So that is a really cool option. So that's what the edit option does. You have group solo, just solos your group itself. So you can hear the samples only in that group. So right now, we got nothing. But these guys are being soloed. So we can hear them, but these guys are not. You also notice that our high pass and low pass were cloned. Let's get rid of these things right now. So then you have select by Midi. If you have a Midi controller set up, you could actually select which group you're working with actually clicking on your Midi controller. You also notice that when we hit down here on our keyboard, the groups we're using light up orange or yellow, depending on your screen. To me, it's orange. And then we have create empty group. We've already talked about that. And then we're going to talk about voice groups next time. And then we're going to talk about these start groups because these could be really important and cool, but also very confusing. So if you have any questions about this, drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a blessed day.